Hello everybody, my name is Kyle. I am the community manager at Hellbent Games, and I'd like to welcome you to our VHS Q&A. I'm joined here today by some of my esteemed colleagues, and I'll get you to introduce yourselves now.
Great. Hey everybody, I'm Jeffrey Wong. I'm the lead gameplay programmer and gameplay designer here at Hellbent. I work on design and implementation of gameplay mechanics, weapons, monster power, sound design, and our character progression systems, like the perks and the weapon mods and prizes you'll see, and some of the movie challenge systems.
Hi, I'm Zoe Flower. I'm the design director for VHS, and I work on pretty much anything outside of the core gameplay loop. So that would be our progression mechanics, like our journey system, our movie system, as well as our store economy and content plan, and then, of course, anything that is backstory, lore, or narrative.
Hi, I'm Kenzo Nishidate. I'm the lead character artist here at Hellbent Games. I manage the rest of the character artists as we receive concepts and sort of turn those concepts from design into actual models and characters that go into the game.
And I'm Christopher Mayer. I'm the creative director. I work on the core game loop with Jeff and the design team. I also design levels, and I also supervise the entire project to make sure it's going in the right direction.
All right, so starting things off here, we have a lot of new people in our audience today. So just give me the simple rundown here, Chris. What is VHS?
VHS is a PC action horror 4 versus 1 multiplayer game, asymmetrical game, where there's 4 underpowered characters fighting against 1 superpowered character. In our situation, it's 4 teenagers fighting against a monster spawned out of their local video store in the early 80s, and one of the teenagers turns into a monster before their very eyes and tries to kill their friends, and the 4 friends try to get together and kill their friend who turned into a monster.
So where did the name and theme of VHS come from?
The name evolved over a long time. We had a few different names, but the naming and the theming... Zoe, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. Well, we knew pretty early on that we wanted the game to take place in sort of an 80s setting with that theme. And I can remember really early on looking at the very first prototype before it had any art or anything and sort of asking, like, it was such a great experience, but, you know, knowing we wanted it to be sort of teens versus monsters, which was a very 80s trope, we just, right away when I saw it, I thought, well, of course, the kids have been sucked into a portal and there's been like something evil in their local video store and it's sucked in all of the monster movies off of the shelf, and now they're fighting monsters come to life. And it just sort of, that really resonated with people when we talked about it, and it just really grew from there. So, and then the name itself, VHS, stands for Video Horror Society, and that is part of our lore. So as you'll soon learn as we reveal more of what's going on in the experience, that the Video Horror Society is a big part of the backstory of the game.
And Video Horror Society was a bit of a mouthful, and we found when we had testers playing the game, they kept calling it VHS, and it just logically made sense. Just call it VHS.
How did we land on the sort of visual style that we see in VHS?
We actually had a very realistic style originally, and we went for quite a gritty, sort of bloody, violent look in the game. And then we realized, though, when we were playing, the violence and the blood didn't drive the scare. The scare came from giant monsters chasing you and hiding from them in those tension moments. So we decided, fun first, and which is one of our biggest pillars is fun, is put the focus on making the game fun. And when we did that, we thought, let's try removing all the violence. And when we removed it, the game was just as scary as it was. It didn't matter if the monster's coming at you looking all realistic or dressed like a really silly costume. So once we realized we had that, it opened up actually a whole bunch of area we could design the game where we could make it anything we wanted it to be and not be limited. And we're not pushed into a horror corner where we're just dark and everything is macabre. It's actually something where we can celebrate fun and still be scared at the same time. And then the art style for the characters was a big part of that look, and I think that's where Kenzo can probably...
Yeah, the whole art style changed when we sort of realized that everything shifted from being super gritty and realistic and grounded to being a little more stylized, and we ended up realizing that we could do a lot of these things because we weren't pushing ourselves into that corner. And I think a lot of it came from the team's excitement about all of those fun things, because there was costumes and various other cosmetics that we wanted to do that we wouldn't have been able to do before, because it would have been at odds with the tone of the game. So shifting to this more stylized style game allows us to make more fun stuff.
And I think it's a real sort of celebration of the 80s VHS era, which is what we're paying homage to. And it is colorful and bold and unapologetically fun and over the top. And that's what we're driving towards. And that's what we're all really passionate about. And I think that really shows.
I think the big question early on was, can we have a game where teens are dressed in ridiculous costumes and they can still hide? They can still play effectively. And once we realized we could do that, when we had a teen wearing a cheerleader outfit, or they had big hair, or they had some ginormous pink or fluorescent colored costume on, and they could still play in our game, because our game's broken into small rooms mostly. It's not a big open field or anything. So when you're playing in small rooms like that, you can really juke and hide behind small things. And once we realized we have a 6 foot tall character and a 5'8" character, and they both can play the same with whatever costumes they're wearing. I mean, obviously some costumes are really over the top and you're really asking to be seen, but even with that, you can still play really effectively. And once we realized that, it just opened the world up for us. We don't have to say, oh, we only need dark costumes, or every player is going to be racing for dark costumes. And it really allowed us to just explore and incorporate all those crazy things from the 80s, which we love.
We've talked a little bit about sort of the depths of our cosmetic system. What does that really entail as far as the player experience and the flexibility that they get?
We have a pretty robust cosmetic system that's taken a long time to get going. We've gone through a few different iterations of different cosmetic systems, and we realized that, again, the fun was giving the players as much freedom as possible within technical limitations to be able to do as many things as we can give them. So that ended up growing from a few different slots that you could equip different pieces into, and I think we're up to 10 slots now with different cosmetic items that you can swap in and out of all of those different slots. And it's been a huge effort by a bunch of different people on the team in order to make this system work, but it's come together, and there's a lot of customization. I think we have head slots, face slots, eye slots, outers, tops, bottoms,
full
socks,
costume swaps,
shoes,
emotes,
skins, like your physical skin as well.
Skin,
Yeah, and then on top of that, not just cosmetics that affect you as your character, but also cosmetics that affect things outside of that as well. Like you said, Zoe, spectrals and
and on both sides.
things.
So the monsters have some pretty amazing customizations, which we've really been trying to grow and build, and which is a big technical feat because each monster is different. So you have to make them for each one.
Yeah.
So let's paint a picture here then. Process start to finish, bringing some sort of cosmetic into the game, just to really drive home how many people are involved in this process.
Yeah.
Well, it usually starts with a dream.
It literally does start with dreams. Yeah.
It does.
And then I come into work from my computer at home and message Chris and say, I had a crazy dream. And then I say, I'm going to call the concept team and tell them about my dream. And then the concept team not only listens to that, but they actually get it. And then the next thing you know, they're drawing it, and it's cooler than anything that I actually dreamt.
It's pretty amazing how fast the concept team turns around crazy ideas we throw at them. We throw a lot of crazy ideas, and they just throw.
Or we give them pictures from our yearbooks, stuff we wore. They don't believe us.
Then the concepts that they generate from that, we review it sort of on the art director and Zoe and myself will take a look at it and see is this something that matches the fun of the game. And we also share it with people like Kenzo, because anything we're creating in the game has to technically work in the game. So there's a lot of people that see it at that level. And once we get
Martin
to a point,
has to see it, and he'll kill my dream and say no. It's
Martin's our project manager, so he schedules it in, and he's like, "This is 10 years from now, sort of thing." But so we we take that concept once it's approved, and then we give it to Kenzo's team, and they start building it. And so, say it's even a pair of gloves or something, they would have to like see if it works technically, see if it works with our layering system. Then Kenzo would decide who gets to build it.
Yeah, a bunch of people come in at that point in the pipeline. It's us characters working with concepts and game. Sometimes if it's gameplay related, we have to work with gameplay as well to make sure that that technically fits within all of the in-game systems. And then we start, if it's really complicated, we give them like proxies and things to work with to make sure that we can get it in-game and working before we've even really started on the art, just to make sure that all works. And then it goes through us. We create all of that, the actual in-game geometry. We pass that off to rigging, and we kind of split off there. We go into texturing and look dev alongside rigging while they're weighting it and everything, and then we all kind of group up at the end.
And that rigging phase might involve something that moves, right? Or it might be something that has to blend interestingly. So it also touches on our tech team that helped build the character customization system, because they might need to address that piece if it's new. If it's something that we've done before but a variation, that's not a problem. We sort of have a pipeline for that. But if something that's new, which we do quite often want new things. It's amazing how often we try to we advance the system in our.
Yeah, and then the final steps gets passed off to animation if it requires animation, and then effects as well, and then also if it's gameplay related, there's gameplay implementation that has to happen and all of these things. So as simple as cosmetics sounds, there's a lot of people that have to touch it as it goes through the pipeline to make sure that it's working. So it's a pretty complicated process.
Yeah, and then at the other end of it, we have to put it into the game somehow. So it has to be into the store, or it has to be earned in as part of your journey, or it has to plot into like some area there. So it touches our lead designer who does a lot of those systems, and Zoe and Enzo also deal with that end of it. And yeah, there's from beginning to end, it touches like probably half the team. It's amazing how much one piece can do.
So obviously, people are here learn about VHS, and the core part of that is playing the game itself. So one of the points of conversation that's come up a lot has been our HUD and why we include so much information on it. Jeff, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So we love to play, and we study the asymmetric genre closely. One thing we've observed is that there's the power difference between teams that queue into a match as a group of friends on voice comms versus those that queue up solo can be huge. So, and the members of the team, they can call out over voice chat like where they are, where the enemy is, what they're doing, their weapon status, what their plans of the next move are, and they work so much more as a cohesive unit. And so that power difference is a real problem from a game balance perspective, because we're assuming players of similar skill. If we make the monster powerful enough to deal with those coordinated groups, then they can really overwhelm the solo players. But conversely, if you balance the monster for a team of solo players and they don't have any information and can't communicate with their teammates, and the coordinated groups just dominate the monster. So our approach was to go ahead and build and balance the monsters from the beginning to be powerful enough to face off against a full coordinated team, and then give the solo players the tools they need to be on a level playing field. So we did this we have built-in voice chat system, but even if you don't use voice chat at all, we give you lots of other tools too. Like our HUD provides full team status information, carried pickups and weapons. We have room labels. So at a glance, you get a big picture view of what your teammates, where they are. Status icons, so you know what your team is doing. We have a context-sensitive ping system, indicate your intentions and call out items and threats. And we play test the system using these tools. And we're pleased to say that once you become experienced with using them, you'll be able to coordinate with your team at a high level without needing to say a word. So in doing this, it really frees us up to make our monsters truly threatening. They have all the mechanics to repel teams that swarm the weapons. Teams can't keep the monster away for long on their own. They have to rely on their armed teammates to come to their side and protect them. And we were also able to play with cool monster designs that require teams to communicate and spread across the map to counter the monster powers, or combine their attacks to break through the monster's defenses. So we found that one of the most fun things of playing games of this genre is you need to work together with your team to overcome a much stronger opponent. And on the monster side, it's really fun having the power and the tools to dismantle even a really coordinated team.
Yeah, we play a lot without voice comms on, just to see how that experience is and keep it as tight as possible. When I play, I actually, with voice comms, even with that on, I'm using that extra icon information all the time just to understand where people are, because people don't communicate at the same level. If you have a super coordinated team, they might talk at the same level, but some players just freeze up when they're being chased by a monster. They don't actually say anything. And you're like, where are you? What's happening? But you can actually get information without them even telling you they're being chased by the monster. You can see they're being chased by the monster. You can see what room they're in. If you have some of the perks on, you can see some vision states where you can tell when after people have been hurt, or you can see friends who are close nearby. So all that information adds up to giving each player so much more ability to just understand what's happening in the game, even if they're not talking at all. In fact, some of the streamers who've been playing with us don't talk at all. Granny, when she plays with us, doesn't speak. She listens only, but she doesn't speak to us, and we play super effectively with her all the time.
So in VHS, ultimately it comes down to playing the game, and we have a lot of different options for customizing a player's experience, talking about stuff like perks, mods, and mutations. How does that system sort of work for players?
So both the teens and the monsters have access to perks, which give them a small boost to their power. And they have a certain number of slots, 5 currently, that you can assign your perks to. And each perk has both a tier and a cost associated with them. So this gives us the ability to balance our perks with a lot of flexibility, so that if a perk proves particularly strong, we can adjust its point cost so that you have to give up a little more to get it to fit into your loadout. Also, different tiers, the perks have different costs. So this also makes the lower tier versions of the perk no longer irrelevant. You can slot them in at a lower cost into a build and create a lot of different options and variety in what you can slot into your builds.
Yeah, I'll often play one of the other characters I don't normally main to get their tier 1 perks, just the tier 1 perks, because they're great to slot in with my character's main perks that I like, or whatever perks I'm running. So like Leo has a early perk that I absolutely love. I'll play him to unlock his first level of his journey just to get his perk, or at least that perk, so I can add it to my build, which is awesome to fill up a build. Yeah, and every time you're playing, you're unlocking more points that you can build your build with up to a maximum. And while you're doing that, every time you get a new point, it changes what you can fit into those slots. So it really makes it so you can customize your character in different ways.
And so the other part of that system then is mods and mutations. How do those play out?
So our weapon mods are something you'll unlock continually as you use the weapons in the game. As you craft them and use them to attack the monster, you'll gain weapon experience, which will give you weapon levels, which unlock these mods in addition to really cool progression weapon skins as well. And the mods, what they do is they change up the way the weapon works. Some of them provide an effect you couldn't say necessarily whether it's positive or negative, it's just different. And other ones, they actually provide you a bonus into the weapon's effectiveness at the cost of some other aspect of the weapon. For example, there might be one which allows the weapon to have more charges, so you can use it more, but it takes longer to build. So the idea with these weapon mods, we didn't want an issue of power creep, where players who had more experience and had more mods were strictly stronger than players who didn't. It was more like we wanted to add variety to the play experience by you become really familiar with how a weapon worked, and now you want to kind of change it up a little bit, but not gain a raw power boost.
Yeah, it keeps it really fresh because you don't know what your team's using, or what you've set up, and the monster doesn't know what you're using. So you always have sort of an interesting balance there. And like Jeff said, we're playing with things like build time and startup time and weapon duration and things like that. So there's a lot of variety in there, and it really can make you have a personal build that works best for your style of play. There's some really funny weapon mods you can do. People try. We have a bouncing firebomb that can shoot down hallways, which some people try to get really good at in the office, and some people are really good at. But when they miss, it's kind of hilarious as well. So it's like it all has trade-offs. Right? It's not giving you a better weapon. It's giving you a variation that's to your own style.
Yeah, and those
Yeah,
are all things that unlock as you go through weapon progression. So they won't all be instantly available to you. So it's something you have to work for.
Exactly. And then to speak on our monster mutations, it works off of a similar concept to the weapon mods. And these are other things that unlock for the monsters as they play through their journey. These mutations are for each of the monster powers, and they will, again, change up how the power works, but they will not be a raw power boost over the original power. And that was the intention. Was we didn't want the monsters, again, with a lot more experience, a lot more playtime, to have powers that are strictly better, but more that to mix up the experience of playing the monster. So the power doesn't work quite the way it did originally, but added some other drawback to it. And that part of the real fun is when the teens play against a monster, not only do they have to adapt to what monster they're playing, but also what mutations they currently have equipped. And that is something they'll discover as they play during the match against that monster.
Okay, that segues really well then into talking about progression and the journey system. Zoe, explain to me what the journey is all about.
So the journey is our main character progression system. I have to say it's taken us many kicks at the can to find a progression system that we were all really happy with, that we felt spoke to the vision of the game. We've gone back to the drawing board many times. And so we eventually landed on this idea that we really wanted our characters that we love to have some progression in the game, even though you don't really see a huge difference in their powers, or because we have to be so careful with balance. But we really wanted that sense that you're unlocking a lot of great stuff, and you're also learning a little bit about the character along the way and how it fits into their sort of personal story and potential. And so we developed what we call the journey, and that's a 3-act system. And basically you're pathing through a series of nodes, and that's up to you how you want to move through those paths. And along the way, that's where you're going to unlock all your perks for that. Then those are character specific that you'll find for each character. You'll get their perk slots, their perk points, and you're also going to get a set of custom cosmetics that we've designed for each character as well. So you're getting some really cool little bonus pieces as you go along, and you'll also unlock your character's potential. So, and that's going to give you the ability to equip some discounted pricing within your loadout. So, and then that also ties directly into our movie system, which isn't technically character progression, but I feel like it lives within that system. We can talk a bit more about that after.
Yeah, and those perk discounts that Zoe mentioned allow, each character does have a bit of an affinity towards some sort of style of play, but they're not huge landslides. That way it gives them a bit of a discount in that area so they can play more towards the style they like. But they still only have 3 out of 5 slots they can modify that way after they're fully maxed out. So it still allows for you to explore all the other characters, but it gives that player, say they're more into healing like Faith is or something, that gives them more ability to affect that with their perks.
Yeah, and it's really sort of that journey is their experience through the surviving this, sort of story that they're in. I can't say too much about, but the monsters also have their own journey, and while they don't have their own potential, you still get to unlock their perks and some pretty awesome cosmetics for them as well.
So jumping off of that then, you mentioned movies. Let's talk about our movie system real quick.
Movies. Yeah, well, this is really, we can't call ourselves VHS if we don't have an entire shelf of movies for people to rent. So as we were trying to figure out our progression system and, wanting our characters to feel like they had a starring role, but also that the movies played a central part as well, we decided to create a sort of challenge system for players, and we themed that around movies. And so we came up with the idea of 2 types of movies. We have our classic movies and we have our limited edition movies. And so the classic movies are really part of character and account mastery. They go hand in hand with the journey. And so as you progress through the journey, you'll also see that you've got a trilogy of character specific movies. And on the teen side, this is sort of an aspirational set of movies that really tie to the character's personality and their potential and and what they're expected to do in the game. And so you'll automatically have a rental that's tied to that character, and it's sort of a passive system. Like you'll be able to just play your matches, and the challenges at hand are sort of completed depending how you play the match. But that's basically how the classic movies work. And as you complete what we call a scene, which is a set of tasks that you're required to do, then you'll also unlock some lore associated with that classic movie. And so it's an entire trilogy of movies we've dreamed up and brought to life. Not only just a single set of a trilogy, but if you complete that, you also unlock the extended cut of that with additional lore and additional cosmetics, and you'll get eventually to the director's cut. And if you can complete that, and by then you'll need some of the prerequisites that you'll find in your late stage of your journey. So that's why they sort of go hand in hand together. If you complete that, you'll unlock a set of legendary trilogy costumes or skins for your specific character. And that's the only way you can get those skins. So that's a pretty cool way to play the game and get some bragging rights as well. So that's the classic movies. What's also cool is we have limited edition movies. Those are kind of like a event-based system, so we can just keep adding content at any time, and we just sort of come up with an idea for a movie, something we may want to pay homage to or celebrate an event. And these are time limited, much like when you went to the video store and you had a weekend rental or a week-long rental. And that gives you an opportunity to work through a specifically specially themed movie and get some cool little cosmetics and just sort of interact with the game in a different way. And those don't have the same sort of prerequisites, whereas the classics are tied to a character. These are just sort of maybe play as any monster or play as any teen or play as anyone. So that's the movie system.
Zoe says that there's a trilogy of movies, but it's really like 9 movies. If you're anything like I was when I bought movies, you bought the regular version, and then when the extended version came out, you bought that. When the director's cut came out, you bought that. Then you bought the Criterion version. We don't actually have a Criterion version, but it's a lot of movies you're playing through, and each of them have their own flavor. And Zoe said it's passive, but it is passive to the point where you're trying to do something very specific, and then you have a lot of fun trying to finish specific tasks in the game.
Yeah.
A lot of times people run up to you and say,
passive.
"Here, have a candy bar," and like, "Why are you giving me a candy bar?" It's like, "Oh, it's for my movie."
I saw it in this one scene in a movie.
This scene. Yeah, and no, it's not passive, but we're not forcing the player to interact with it. It's completely, bonus content.
Oh, and lots
in
of
that
times
way.
you finish the content without knowing what you're checking.
But you'll want to, because you get a ton of cool stuff, and I am just blown away because we've sort of really gone and built entire worlds around these movies, and then our artists have created, I say, small little cosmetic rewards, but they're done with so much love, like just a basic sticker or portrait.
That's my favorite part of it, is the movies are so specific to the characters that when you play through them and you unlock the lore and the clothing and the pieces like that it really feels like it. I love reading the lore because it just adds a lot of times we're so busy playing the game and testing it that I don't get the chance to just sit back and read the backstories. And when that all of a sudden shows up, I know, Zoe, it doesn't just all of a sudden show up. You work a long time writing it. But
Nobody reads.
When it's in the game and we read it, it's super. I played through the movie system without the lore there, and it was fun. But with the lore added to it, it just makes it so much.
Adds so much.
Yeah. Well, it gives us a lot of theming to draw on too, so that when you go to the store as well, you'll be able to find additional cosmetics that relate to some of those stories as well. So it's a kind of a nice tie-in.
Yeah, and every teen's story is from a different aisle in the movie store, video store.
We've gone beyond horror, right? Like every character has a genre they love, much like we do, and it's there's a great analog for the monsters too. You're not so much playing through their hero's journey and trilogy, but you're playing through their origins, and so there's some great lore to be learned about the monsters as well.
Yeah, some of the most fun moments for me when we started adding all of this stuff into it was going to Zoe, and if you're really paying attention to the lore that's coming through, I'll be reading through it and I'll be like, Zoe, wait, is that where this came from? And like we've made this stuff, right? So and Zoe's like, yeah, this comes from this movie, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
It's kind of funny because when we've been working a lot from home, but some of us are in the office, and Kenzo's often in the office, but it's just like a few of us here, and I'll hear Kenzo go, Brace, have you read the story for this? And he's just super pumped about it. And then I read it, and it's just, it's pretty great. It's nice seeing that all come together. It's pretty awesome. The system does feel like a video store. I mean, like we're really renting crazy, weird movies from the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel like we've landed on the right progression system for the game.
What's included in VHS at launch then?
There are 3 maps, 3 monsters that are tied to those maps thematically, but you don't have to play the monster on that map. It's kind of like Cabin in the Woods. You don't know which monster you're going to get on each map. And there's 5 teenagers. And there's there's how many weapons are there,
12.
Jeff?
12 weapons.
12 weapons, and with all of the various mods you can put on those, it's like limitless amount of weapons.
It's a lot of variety.
Yeah, the
And
teens.
I think I'm somewhere accounting beyond 400 free cosmetics, I think, at launch.
Yeah. Well,
If
you
you were to play
have to grind for them, so free is like a bit of your time, but yeah, definitely stuff that's you can get without having to pay anything in the game. And you also, I mean, the teenagers come with like 4 variant costumes that they have at the start, so you can really make yourself look completely different. We have a store that you can buy things in every day that has very cool items for monsters, teenagers, weapons, emotes, stickers. There's just no limit. It's so much fun. We have so many things.
So, talking about the store then, currencies. What are they? How are they going to work?
Yeah, so we've got a pretty simple economy. Your main 2 currencies are called Flux and Fanbucks. And Fanbucks is our premium currency that you'll have to buy with real money, and that's our only source of monetization. So we're hoping that we can encourage people to shop in the store and support us. But otherwise, you're earning Flux through everything you do in the game, and that's where you're going to really amass that currency through the journey and the movie system and your match play, and you can spend that in the store as well. And then we have a 3rd currency called Aura, which is strictly for your character journey. So, and you'll just earn that from leveling up and getting XP in your matches. So every time you earn an Aura, you can go to your journey and spend it on a node. And that's how you advance through the characters.
The nodes are various prices, so it's not just one-to-one. You have to, for the more important things in the journey, it costs a little bit more.
New characters. We've already said that maps are going to be free.
What? New characters?
Yeah, new characters. We promise there are more coming. How is that going to work?
We're constantly building stuff, so we're building well beyond our release point right now because we have a roadmap that goes well into the future. We're building new monsters, new maps, and new teens all the time.
Yeah, and you will be able to buy them in both Fanbucks and in Flux.
I think that's the question Kyle was really hinting at. Yeah.
Everybody wants to know, right? Yes, you'll be able. There's no paywall there. You'll have the ability to use in-game currency to get new characters, and if you don't have enough, you should get the new characters anyway because they're ridiculously cool.
Yeah, and we'll try to make the grind of that as reasonable as possible. But obviously, we're a free-to-play game. We're not getting money from people buying the game. They can try it out for free. So we're hoping people will support us and buy cosmetics and things like that. But if they want and they purely don't have any money, or they just want to just grind away because they love that experience, they can also get characters and monsters that way. Sure.
So, some of the concerns expressed to us in regards to multiplayer game experiences has to do with privacy and player safety. What are some of the measures that we're taking to help address these concerns?
Yeah, we've really tried to listen to people when they've brought up those concerns, and some of the features we've added are good for streamers, some are good for players. Some things like you can obscure your name if you're a streamer so other players can't see your identity, so they can't stream snipe or whatever they're planning on doing, or talk specifically to the streamer, act weird in front of the stream. And other things you can do is obscure other players' names in case you don't want to see what their names are in your stream as well. You can also mute players completely so you don't hear their voice in the game. You can mute yourself but still listen to other players. You can also report people if you see abusive behavior. We keep adding to that list. We keep adding a tool set there for people, so when they're playing the game, they feel it's as safe as they want it to be. And if they're just playing with friends, obviously, they probably wouldn't turn on any of those features. But if they're playing with parents are watching, letting a kid play, or if a streamer's playing, or someone just doesn't want to interact with other people for whatever reason, they have a lot of tools at their disposal they can use.
Another thing that's been expressed to us as far as concerns go is anti-cheat.
All right. Yeah. Well, anti-cheat is it's a big problem. We're using a mixture of industry standard tools as well as our own player analytics and reporting approaches. We know that it's a big concern for the audience. It's also a big concern for us. We don't want any cheating in our games. But the reality is that fighting against cheating is basically a continual arms race. and we'll do what we can to ensure a fair experience for our players.
A question we've had from a number of people has to do with modding. Will VHS support modding?
Unfortunately, no. Modding in a multiplayer game, as much as it sounds cool, leads to people building mods that allow them to exploit things in the game. So it's unfortunate that we can't just say, yeah, we'd love to have everyone build something really cool for the game, but it would have to be vetted by us. And right now our team's not at the size where we could take modding on as a task.
Another hotly requested feature, new game modes.
We aren't considering new game modes right away. One reason is we don't want to split our player base into separate matchmaking queues, as this could really slow down our matchmaking. However, allowing for private matches you can play against your friends with the player progression turned off is on our roadmap.
So finally, topic we know you all been waiting for, the beta. What is going on with the beta right now?
The beta is, we're working hard to build it right now. We actually had a huge number of people sign up for it, much, much larger than we ever anticipated.
Yeah, so exciting.
It grows every day, and we really want to make sure we can get as many people in as possible. And part of that is making sure we can scale everything to the size to support as many people as possible. When we are ready, which will be soon, and we say that a lot, but it's true. We're working really hard on it all the time. And when we're ready, we'll have a method to bring people into that, probably a randomization of all the people in there to make it fair and bring people in waves. It'll probably start pretty small. I'll let you know right now. It'll probably start small, but we'll build it as quickly as we can, as long as we're not breaking things as we go. But this is our first time making a game like this, and we're working really hard to make sure it works as successfully as possible.
So with that in mind, how is the actual beta rollout going to work? How do players get in?
Players will be notified by carrier pigeon. It's going to be difficult in some areas of the world, but it's also getting colder in these months. But expect a pigeon, possibly an owl, to arrive. Beta key for the Harry Potter fans, I know, right? But no, we'll pick randomly, like I said, and then you'll get a key sent to you. And actually, we'll have a process before that where you sign up on our site. We have a new website coming out where you'll be able to sign up. If you're selected, you'll get a response and email, and you'll have a key that allows you to get into our launcher and launch the game. The question about will you be able to play with, if I get a key, am I allowed to invite 3 of my friends to play since it's 4v1? Unfortunately, we've had such a significant turnout of people to play the beta that want to play the beta that wouldn't really be fair. If we gave out, it would quadruple the size of our beta, which is already massive. So we're going to give out keys, and hopefully in one of the ways your friends get in, or if they don't get in with you right away.
When is the beta?
Soon.
Kenz's been sitting there with that cutlery for days waiting for this moment.
Exactly.
I'd like to tell you the exact date. We're getting closer to it. Every day I can say that.
What are some of your favorite horror movies?
My favorites, let's see, I love the Scream trilogy. I guess there's actually now 4 movies, but the first 3 quadrilogy, and now soon to be a 5th movie. But yeah, I was a huge fan of those movies. I thought they were amazing. So probably, yeah, my favorite would be that.
All 3 of his favorite movies are Scream movies.
In the horror genre, I'd say it's true.
I can answer that question. Let's all answer our favorite movie question.
Yeah.
All right, what's your favorite movies?
My favorite horror movies, I would say The Thing, John Carpenter's classic, because the practical effects still scare the hell out of me, and it's such a fantastic movie. I would say A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, just the sense of humor and the dreams and all those things. I used to scare the hell out of my girlfriend, now wife at the time, by imitating Freddy Krueger's voice, and I thought that was so much fun, and it was such a great movie. And to add a little more comedy, because the fun side of it's a big thing for me, is American Werewolf in London, which was actually a pretty scary movie when you're a kid, but it also was super fun. And I thought it had such a nice sense of balance of those 2 worlds, which I think our game has, is a balance between the scare and the fun.
Zoe?
By favorite, I assume you mean most emotionally traumatic for me. I would say.
I know these ones. I can answer these for her.
Oh yeah, hands down, gotta be Poltergeist. To this day, I cannot look at a tree or sleep through the night without thinking about clowns.
People
That
just see her
movie
sitting in
really-
front of a TV all the time.
People like to mess with me by putting chairs up on tables. Yeah, so I would say Poltergeist and Aliens. Definitely way up there.
Aliens, interesting.
Yes.
Mm. And Grease too.
And that's
It's scary. It's scary.
it's your favorite horror movie. Yeah, but generally there's enough horror in my head. I don't need to watch it.
Kenzo?
Alien. The first
Good choice.
No.
Good
Yeah.
choice.
Mm.
by far.
I think
Probably my
Aliens
favorite
is an
movie
action
ever.
movie.
Yeah.
Hence why I like it.
I'm
Yeah,
with you.
definitely Alien. I think that's maybe my favorite movie, period.
Any other ones? Killer Clowns from Outer Space? Anything like that? Can
Killer
jump out
Clowns
at you?
from Outer Space.
Did you
The
ever see
Omen.
Razorback?
The
Ooh,
Omen.
Razorback.
The Omen.
I couldn't
Wild Boars.
sleep for a week after seeing The Ring when I was a kid. And that
What about the
movie
Blair
stuck
Witch
with me.
Project? I saw that in the theater, and then I couldn't camp for like 4 years. True story.
Kyle?
Wow.
I'm not a big horror person, which I know.
Oh, you're out of here. We need.
Yeah,
If
I know.
anyone's a community manager out there, we're looking
I know.
for a new community manager
I
who's got
know.
some sense of horror movies.
I'm a big monster action sort of movie guy, though.
Matthew Broderick's Godzilla with the dinosaurs.
But I think probably
Jurassic Park was terrifying.
wow.
It's just answer for
Starship
Kyle.
Troopers.
Yeah,
It's
just keep going. I'm gonna keep going. No, I'm a big fan of really cheesy action movies, and the number one on my list for that, and
I know what you're gonna say.
it's Jason X,
Yeah.
because it's
Jason
a
X.
truly terrible movie, and I love it so much. We all work on different parts of VHS. What are some of your favorite components of the game that you yourself have worked on?
For myself, I'd say designing the new monsters, the monster powers, the teen weapons, and the interaction of all those elements. That's my favorite thing to work on.
Zoe?
For me, I would say it's coming up with the concept in my mind and seeing that come to life through our so talented and passionate concept and character teams, for sure. Tied with reading the lore discussion on Discord.
You hear that? It does actually get read.
I read.
Yeah.
Kenzo?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that we've made that is not in the game yet. Some of that stuff is probably my favorite stuff I've made. But if I had to pick something, it's probably Gloria. Yeah, probably Gloria.
That's right.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
She's got so much character to her, and I'm really happy with the way she turned out. There's a lot of back and forth working with Todd and E-Man on that. And she's also been there sort of from the beginning and followed us through the entire art style change and stuff. So there's a lot of history with that character.
Yeah,
think
and
that's
her
my favorite
trilogy
thing.
costume is epic.
Yeah. So that everything surrounding Gloria is pretty close to my heart, I think.
Chris?
I'm going to cheese out and answer this in sort of a general way.
Oh, boo.
We started
detail.
Oh, come on.
started this game like a long time ago now, and we started with a very small team. And as we built the team to be larger, everyone here works really hard all day long, and then we play test the game at the end of the day. And every day I'm surprised by new pieces that are in the game, and it's just amazing seeing what it's grown into from where it started, because we started with such a weird, small, little quirky video rental movie game type idea. But what it's become is really something that represents the whole team and has so much cool stuff in it. And I'm constantly going, when did we add that? Because so many pieces, like Kenzo, for example, will say, hey, I think I figured out how to do something crazy. And then like a couple days later, we have it in the game. And it's really amazing to see something like that come to life. And like Jeff said, all of the pieces he's working on where you can modify and adjust the game. It's just there's so many people working on the game all the time, and it's become something much bigger than our original vision. And I think it's so much better than it was when we started.
But I'm your favorite.
You're okay.
Damn. All right, well, I'm going to give my cheeseball answer now. For me, it's all of you, our community, our audience. Without you guys being here, A, I wouldn't have a job, so that's pretty cool.
That's true.
And B, your guys' passion for our game, the emotion you guys bring forth, all the ideas, all the feedback, all just the random spoon emojis that get spent
It's
for
amazing.
miles on our Discord. It means the world to us, and honestly, we do this all for you. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us on this weird Q&A / discussion, because it did get weird at some moments. And thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's been awesome. We look forward to this whole journey with you guys.